can.
That's no moon.
What's up, everybody? We are live. It is episode 44 of the Hardcore Casual Podcast. He is Jay of F1 Podcast fame. I am Mason of Radio Infamy, and we are the conversation at the table behind you. And the start time for tonight, much like the day of the week, snuck up on us. We were just talking, and then I looked up in the corner and saw that it was time to go. So hopefully that's a good sign. Hopefully that's a good sign of things to come. But yeah, this week has kind of flown by. It's not been the smoothest week, but it still has flown by regardless.
Yes, it has, man, and it has been crazy. But I know you're busy still unpacking and moving, and we're trying to get ready for the holidays in the beer business, and we've got some other stuff that's coming up, and that's going to dominate a lot of our time. So all the prep work leading up to both of those things, it's just, I can only imagine. I told you, I got home from work, and I was like, man, I got to take a power nap before we do this show. Now I feel good. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. I'm just going to say right off, all those weeks you thanked me for, I had nothing coming into it, and I was so thankful. I was like, please, God, please have just 2 items. I can work with 2 items if we got to. And so I'm excited because I like everything. There was a couple of them that I wanted to bring up tonight as well anyway, so which is great. And then I had a couple things that I want to do. So anyway, yeah,
absolutely. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about. It's been kind of like a weird week. There's not been a ton of news. There have been a couple of significant things in the news, but not a lot of big earth-shattering things. I think GTA 6 being delayed last week kind of is still just sort of eating up the news cycle. That's
and like, I think everybody else is just staying away. They're like, let's let them hang themselves for a couple of weeks, and then we can get back into it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are breathing a sigh of relief that whatever they had going on, that's like distracted. If you were a company, I mean, obviously we don't want anybody to lose their jobs, but if you were a company that was thinking about layoffs, last week was the time to do it. Last week about Friday.
Nobody would have heard about it.
Yeah, but it is good to be back. Yeah, I've got a couple of things. On the shelves here as I am moving things in. I was happy that we moved into the house. I've gotten everything off the floor, so there's no boxes are no longer on the floor. So I found the floors again and gotten all those boxes thrown out. The big thing now is I have to rediscover my countertops. Find a home for all the things on countertops. But we are slowly making progress. So things will build. We'll get some more things on the shelves, get some things on the walls. We'll work on it. It's a work in progress. But yeah. So it is good to be back. I'm glad that the hardest part is behind us, and I can focus more on this. But a couple of things. One thing that I did want to talk about as it relates to, we usually start off with games, so we'll do that. Oh, I also would just want to kind of summarize, if the title didn't do it, some things that we want to talk about. We're going to talk some Arc Raiders and that kind of like breakout success that it's had. The Dispatch game, I've played that. I'm ready to share my thoughts on it. Jay has some thoughts on Where the Winds Meet, and it sort of emergence now. Is it released now or is it about to release?
So here's the thing, and I couldn't get the new. This is what I'm talking about. They are slow rolling, and I think it's like I said. I think it's by design, but so it's free to play. There's a couple of different, like, I don't want to call them founder editions or whatever they are, but they're cryptically worded. It doesn't say, "Hey, if you get this, you can play now."
Mm,
But I've noticed that a lot of people are playing the game. But what
okay.
it does say is that purchasing this allows you to play the game, which will be a free to play game. And I'm like, that it's not really telling me that I get to play now. So it's kind of weird the way they worded their stuff. I'm not going to say like an AI wrote the summary for the purchase page, but that's what it's sort of looking like.
All right. And we'll also be talking Steam Machines and Predator Badlands. I got to see Predator Badlands, and apparently my take is going to be a hot one. So we'll take a look at that and some of the things that I learned while getting into this. But hey, why don't we just go ahead and kind of we'll just jump in there with where winds meet. Is it where winds meet or where the winds meet?
I think it's just where winds meet.
It's one of the it's such an odd. It's not exactly like if somebody told you that, you'd think it was like a book title, like some sort of like it's a thing. You think of a novel and you think about like trees in the backyard, of something. Like you don't think video game, and you certainly don't think, multiplayer battling video game.
Well, and we're talking about whatever it is, 9th or 10th century China, which was an interesting time for them, and definitely a height in Chinese martial arts. A lot of different things out there, Tai Chi, Wuxia, which I think the game centers on like a Wuxia style of combat. And there's still going to be that. I mean, it obviously won't be karaoke and doing your laundry, but there's still that kind of Yakuza. There's going to be some pastimes that you can get involved with which I hope some of them are like, Go, the game Go. I hope that's on there. Maybe
Isn't
some
that
other
the
cool
oldest
shit.
board game, the
It
oldest known
is.
board
Well,
game in existence?
the Vikings are arguing that their game, their little chess game, not the one from Valhalla. I'm talking before that even, but that theirs is. But who knows? But and I'll save it for when we actually talk about the game here in a little bit. But yeah, just
All right. Well, then I guess if we'll put that one off for a little bit, but then let's just go ahead and start with Steam Machines. So this was I did not have this on my bingo card. Maybe I've just kind of been. I don't know if the rumors had been circulating and I was just not plugged in because of everything that was going on, and I was kind of like checked out as I was doing the move and everything, or if it just snuck up on everybody. But I was actually just a few weeks ago kind of wondering, like, I mean, we've kind of talked about how Xbox has, essentially now that Halo is going to be coming out on PlayStation, they jacked up prices on Game Pass. That they're really not they're not in the console war anymore. Nintendo's out, or sorry, not Nintendo. Xbox is out whenever it comes to the console war. They're not competing. They're clearly doing their own thing. We talked last week about their sort of new thing that they were going to be working on was a kind of like undercutting a gaming PC as opposed to trying to do a console. And I'd been thinking, like, man, that's kind of the end of an era. The console wars. That's an end of an era. Now there's no more competition anymore because who could possibly step in? And I was like, there's not going to be anybody that could step in. Like, what's Lenovo going to like build a console and just automatically be competitive? It's just not going to happen. And then I just didn't even think about somebody re-entering the field like Steam. And so that is the thing. The Steam machines are not new. This is actually attempt number 2 at a Steam console. The Steam machine was a thing previously, and once they announced this, I was like, of course, there we go. If there was anybody that was going to be able to do it, it was going to be Steam, because Microsoft's clearly their sort of like value proposition is, hey, play your games anywhere, and sort of allowing you to access your Steam library and all these other things through Xbox branded things, whether it be a console or whether it be through Game Pass on your PC or through your ROG Ally handheld, all that stuff. But so it's like they were kind of going to be bridging that gap. Well, now Steam is going to be attempting to do that. So I wonder if Steam is going to be able to outpace Xbox at their own game, because obviously Steam already has the monopoly when it comes to PC gaming. And if they can, in fact, throw together a competitive package for consoles, especially now that Xbox they say that we'll have another Xbox, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to be competitive with the PlayStation. But yeah, will it be able to sort of edge out Xbox and sort of compete on both fronts, the PC front and the console front, and sort of be able to battle it out with PlayStation? Because PlayStation's big value proposition, or this the other thing, is still its first party games. And some of those first party games, though, have gone over to PC. So Steam does have some of those first party games. So I don't know. It's interesting. Okay, what do you got here? What are you showing us?
Did it show up?
Yeah, the Steam hardware family officially expands in early 2026.
Yeah, if you open Steam today, this is what you get. So it's got all this stuff on here which, by the way, I got to tell you, I watched a promo on the Steam controller, and that thing is legit. Those two squares down below the sticks are like, touchpad.
So
cursors.
That was one of the things that the original Steam machines that they tried years ago, they had those instead of thumbsticks. And they had these weird sort of touchpad thingies instead of things like thumbsticks. So I'm glad to see that the thumbsticks are still there, and that they have those in addition to the thumbsticks. And even though obviously it didn't go well last time that they tried, I did hear that those pads were actually more usable than you would think, which is the same thing I've heard about on some of the handhelds that are also using, like the Steam Deck and things like that are also using similar things like that. And so you can see it there. Here's another shot of it, of the new Steam machine and what it looks like. And as you can tell, it's there up against those controllers. And, I would assume that those controllers are going to be about the size of an Xbox controller, a PlayStation controller. You can see it up there against the TV remote. And so it's a pretty compact package. And they did release the internals of it and all the stats and all that stuff. And they said they're basically aiming for 4K 60 frames. So,
well, it looks like a mini PC is what it looks like.
Yeah, well, and here's another shot.
Cube PC.
Is if you take
that's
that
exactly
off,
that's a mini PC.
It's 100% what it is. And the heat sink is like 65-70% of this thing.
Well, it'd have to be, because I don't know what RTX NVIDIA card they're putting in it. But to keep it that small, dude, that thing would generate. Plus, you got your CPU under there, presumably. So, I mean, I'm looking at the fan on my PC right now, which is a hypercooler fan, and it's gigantic. So,
and I imagine that's what that black thing is right there behind it. That's the fan. So I imagine the fan is directly behind it. So all of the other stuff, all of the other things that make this thing run have got to be in this really compact package below it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's the video card right below the heatsink, based on what I'm looking at right there, the honeycombing on it. But yeah, so basically you got that heatsink absorbing all the heat off of the CPU and the RAM and the GPU, and then shoving it out the fan, sucking it out the back. But still, I worry about. I know a lot of people that buy mini PCs to run a private server for a game, but still, you worry about the time that they'll have before that thing gets too hot. I don't know what long-term sessions look like on this thing, but this looks like their answer to whatever Xbox is trying to put out this year when they put out their new Xbox, which is basically also a mini PC.
Well, I suspect that this will actually beat Xbox to the punch, because I don't expect Xbox to release their next thing until the next PlayStation. And so this thing, if they're saying dropping in early 2026 now, whenever they say that, like, how early are we talking? Who really knows? They could always be pushed back. but I think they will beat Xbox to market. So looking at that now, what do you think? What do you think the future of the console war and this sort of this PC frontier that Xbox and Microsoft are sort of venturing into against Steam, where they're trying to like compete against Steam by utilizing Steam? I don't know. What do you think? What do you think both of those
Well,
fronts look like on the console side and the PC side going forward?
to their credit, I think they're analyzing market trends. I think, you know, every time you get on a message board for a game that is out on both console and PC, almost invariably, almost everybody that's on console starts their statement with, "Yeah, I wish I had a PC to run this, but right now I have to run it on PS5, and this is what I think of your game." Right? Almost everybody starts with, "God, I wish I had a PC to run this on. If for anything else, just to be able to use mods or see what it looks like, or whatever." But so I think, Microsoft and I think Steam is looking at that, or Valve or whoever, and going, yeah, this is kind of the way it's going, but we want to make either a peaceful transition for people that aren't used to PCs, because they can be a pain in the ass if you don't know what you're doing, especially if you're just a gamer coming straight to a PC. It's can be a little bit daunting at first until you learn the ins and outs. But the other piece is for people that are like, man, I don't have the money. I don't want to buy. Nobody wants to buy I've never met anybody that wants to buy an in-store PC like a Dell or an
That's another
HP.
point. I am curious about a price because they haven't announced a price. I
Yeah,
am curious as to what they're going to be targeting.
yeah. So most people want to build it, so they always end up saying, "Hey, I don't have the money to build this or that," or it's just not in the cards right now, or they're a kid and they're living by their mom and dad's leave. So this is a good, peaceful transition that'll let them play PC games with a controller.
Well, and we know that Valve is, I mean, to call them flush with cash is
Yeah.
a gross understatement. I mean, these guys are stupid rich. I mean,
Yes.
so they could easily sell these things at a massive loss
Yes.
and not even feel it. Like they wouldn't even, they'd never notice it.
Yeah.
And then you just broaden your install base, excuse me, for your game sales business. I mean, that would be brilliant, because and one of the reasons that it would be so negligible is because, like we said, they are the monopoly whenever
Yeah.
it comes to PC gaming. If you buy a game on PC, you buy it on Steam. The only times that something is purchased on like the Epic Game Store is if it's exclusive and you want it immediately,
Yeah.
and it was an Epic Game Store exclusive, or it's one of their free giveaways, and you're like, okay, well, I'll get it then. I'll get it there since it's free. But I mean, yeah, Steam. Not to mention, I don't know what this would mean as well for the just gaming marketplace on consoles in general, because obviously their thing is for you to be able to play, 98% of all games on Steam or whatever, 98, 95, whatever, some crazy percent. You would want to basically be able to play virtually everything that you can play on Steam on this. And Steam, whenever they have sales, they have crazy sales. You get games for cents
$1.99.
or
Yeah.
yeah, a couple of bucks in some
I know
cases.
I've sent you screenshots a couple of weekends where
Yeah.
I'm like, geez, dude, look at this.
Yeah, where you could get like, a list of games for like $15, and you're basically set for the year. So you bring that onto the console market, where
Yeah.
you go onto the PSN marketplace, and yeah, there'll be some games that are on sale, but they're not like sales like Steam has. So if they come down to the console market and they actually make an impact, and then they start, people start purchasing these games, I mean, PlayStation's going to have to respond to something
Yeah.
like that, because they'll overtake them whenever it comes to that, just because of the pricing. So this could be a way to kind of help push back on that that sort of that creeping, the looming $80 uh, you know price increase that's just kind of the black cloud that's hanging over every new major release. Having
Right.
something like this could really push back on that. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting.
Yes, it will be
So,
that. That's for sure.
any more
And I don't
thoughts?
think we didn't talk enough about the VR frame that they've got coming out, because basically from the pictures it looks wireless, which would be awesome. It looks very streamlined. I feel like we're getting closer and closer to where we're just going to have goggles like on the Oasis, which would be legit, by the way. The problem's always been, and this is why PSVR 2 has done so well. Everybody ridiculed it because here's the second iteration of PSVR 2 and it's still got a cord. But that's because they can use the computing and graphical power of the console instead all of it trying to be in the thing, and you get a really, in fact, they've now made I don't know if you knew this or not, they've now have a PC adapter for the PSVR 2 so that you can play PC games in VR on the PSVR 2, which is one of the, other than that, the big one that Valve makes, the HTC whatever. Other than that PS2 VR is legit as far as reviews and ratings.
Well, and that's one of those things. When it comes to VR, I think Valve is going to be the one that wins eventually, and because VR has been one of those weird things where it's been sort of the pipe dream for decades, and there's still, like Ready Player One and there's still all these sci-fi games. It's still the dream is to be able to have this virtual reality, but for whatever reason, it's just every iteration that's been put out has such small adoption rate. Like nobody buys this stuff, but everybody wants it. And so instead of it selling like a game console or like video games and having those kind of movements, it's more like selling like DVDs or Blu-rays before they were the standard. It's in that thing where it's because everybody has their own version of VR. PlayStation has theirs, Valve has theirs, Meta has theirs, and they all have separate storefronts. And I think the thing that's going to seal it is whenever they either all come together or one of them just has such an overwhelming presence.
It pushes the other two out.
Their storefront is going to take over, which is going to be where Steam is. Well, I think that's where we're at right now. Is like that's why the adoption is so slow. Is because it's like, well, is it going to be DVD or is it going to be whatever the big record-looking things were that they had as well, or is it going to be Blu-ray, or is it going to be HD DVD, or is it going to, I think that's the thing, is that we're waiting to see which one of these is going to be the one, and then it can take off.
The thing is, if sim pilots and sim racers were the cornerstone of the gaming space and footprint, then VR would be mainstream. Because I can tell you, flying a jet in VR is an unbelievably liberating experience, being able to just look around in the cockpit and do whatever. Same with racing, where your mirrors actually become a thing. Like you can look over and look in your side mirror or your rear view mirror without having to use the right stick. So I feel like it's coming along, but again, and then PlayStation had that one game that was like Rainbow Six that I loved. I even had like the gun thing for it for VR. Firewall 0 Hour is what it was called. Very, very good.
Well, I think that there's also things like that they have to sort of crack, because it's details that on a console game or a PC game that you don't care about. But when you're in a VR game, it throws you off. If you are, let's say you have your hands open and you look at your hands in the game and your hands are fists. Well, that feels weird. They're like stuff like that. So it's like they've had different ways where it's like, the controller kind of like senses the position of your fingers. They've tried different ways to sort of solve that problem. But those things, like in a console game, that's not even an issue. There's no correlation with your own hands being representative of the hands that are in the game. You're holding a controller, you're pushing buttons. But in VR, your hands are the hands. If you're in a first person perspective, your hands are supposed to be those hands. So the fact that I know that it's in this position and I'm looking at it and it's in this position, it just feels off, and it kind of like takes you out of the experience. There's those little bitty things that pick away at your suspension of disbelief that they have to kind of like bridge all those gaps as well.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, gloves are the answer to that.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can figure out a way to do away with those, and I get it, those little stupid controller things, and it'd just be gloves.
Yeah.
You know, with haptics, where if I reach and grab an axe,
I mean, it's one of those things where it's
I feel the haptic in my palm that I'm holding it.
It's like one of those things where it's like we really, it's such a tricky thing, because in order for that adoption to really get there, it's like we kind of have to bypass iteration. We need it to be Ready Player One. We need the haptic suits. We need all these things, and it's like, well, we're not there yet. But it's like all the incremental steps to get there, we don't have the patience for, because it just feels off. And so it's like they have to, in order for people to adopt it, they can't have this thing where it's like, oh, we'll slowly iterate, version 1, version 2, version 3. It's like for it to be widely adopted, they've got to jump from here to here.
Not to mention the fact, man, and this is why it's so popular in flying and racing. You don't have to go anywhere. There's no extra space requirement for flying and racing. If you're talking about a shooter, God forbid, like I played Skyrim in VR, and it's almost impossible to stand in the same spot because you're in the world and you're like, oh shit, somebody's launching a fireball at me or whatever. You'd need to dedicate a whole room to your house. I've seen people that set up like their whole garage with an omnidirectional treadmill.
Well, and that's another thing that you mentioned, though, just there, that I've also seen in games, and that is you get shot at and your reflex is to dodge out of the way. And some of these things like, oh, well, that's not, there's no motion sensors for that. We don't read the motion sensors for the visor. You have to click this button on the left controller. Like, well,
to dodge.
Yeah. Well, it's like, well, that doesn't feel like I'm gonna, like, because you're gonna do like your instinct. Something's coming at your face, you're gonna dodge. So they need to like incorporate all those things, because the first time you dodge out of the way of a knife that gets thrown at you, and it's like, oh no, you need to hit L1. Like, well, that's just stupid,
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about with Firewall 0 Hour. Why it was so far ahead of its time is it used IR head tracking and eye tracking. Like if you walked up to a door and you blew the doorknob off with a shotgun, you could crouch down and look through the hole that you made and see what was going on the other side of the door. I mean, so it did pick up on you moving around. But Skyrim, you still had a controller in your hand and you had to do the movement on the controller to dodge left or move or run away or whatever. So yeah.
Well, so we'll see. We'll see. I'm very curious to see how they come around with it. And another thing that I am interested in. So we'll go ahead and talk some Arc Raiders now. I have not played Arc Raiders yet. I have played Dispatch, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. But as far as Arc Raiders, I know that it has made a massive splash. Super popular. It's basically doing the Helldivers 2 thing where it just like comes in and mops the floor with everything else. And one thing that I'm really curious about whenever it comes to Arc Raiders and the like is, is basically like, where do we go from here? So Arc Raiders is very similar to Fortnite in its development. Fortnite, whenever it started, the whole thing with Fortnite was that it was supposed to be there was a story, there was going to be a co-op thing that you did, and there was like levels that you would go through, and it was in this development hell for years and years. And then PUBG was a thing that was really popular at the time, and this battle royale thing, it wasn't done to death yet. And Fortnite, it was originally a limited time mode, and they just like threw it together, and they're like, we're going to do a battle royale thing for a couple of months or whatever it was. And they simplified it and they streamlined what PUBG had done. And then it just hit like a hand grenade and took over. And then that just became what Fortnite was. So the adoption just skyrocketed, and Fortnite took over the battle royale situation. And now here we go. Arc Raiders is another one that it was not originally developed to be an extraction shooter. It was originally developed to be a sci-fi action game, and it just wasn't clicking. It was in development hell. and then they pivoted and they started gearing it towards extraction shooters. So stuff like Escape from Tarkov had been very popular among a certain group of fans of the genre, but it was super detail oriented, super like like you like different guns had different ammo, and then in order to utilize the different ammo, you had to like go into your inventory and load the ammo before you could use the gun. It was this whole thing, whereas like all these steps and super detail oriented. But here we go, we have Arc Raiders and they've streamlined the process. So what I'm curious about,
Well, don't forget about the Division, man. Like it feels like it's like that's the OG extraction shooter in a lot of ways. Of course, technically, it wasn't extraction unless you were in the dark zone. I mean, it could be argued that that was the case, but every mission you went on felt like an extraction. So, and I love the way they do it. And I'm going to bring that back up. I wanted to get an early hit on it, but I'll bring it back up when you finish your bit
my
on
rant. Well, the
Yeah,
the thing I was
finish
just
your
saying
damn rant.
is basically one, good for them, great job. I'm happy to see the success, especially after this. They basically took the marathon approach, and they just didn't suck. They didn't steal art. They didn't do all. They didn't ignore the feedback of their player base. And by basically doing everything that Marathon didn't, they made a great game. And so, or
a lot of Fallout. You could tell there was a lot of Fallout inspiration in the creation of this game.
Oh yeah, for sure. And the simplification of a lot of the stuff. But the other thing there is like, so seeing things that follow this process, like Fortnite, where they pivot and they streamline an emerging genre, and then it takes over, much like they pivoted and they kind of streamlined an emerging genre in extraction shooters that are only just now kind of coming into popularity, and now they're kind of taking over with it. What other genres are there out there, or can you think of any that might be sort of like primed for like streamlining and sort of introducing to a mainstream audience? And maybe that's the the thing that particular genre needs to really take off.
Oh, that's a tough question, man. Can't believe it. You've like, I don't know if I really, and I don't know where you go from here with this genre. I really don't. And I've thought about it a million times because it feels like eventually they're all the same. And I hate saying that because that's not only an oversimplification, it's a diminutive statement to say it about these games because they're great. But like you look at Diablo and all the isometric RPGs, Path of Exile 2, which Path of Exile 2 is Diablo on steroids. So good. You look at, there was a sci-fi cyberpunk one that I love called The Ascent. But all of these, they all follow basically the same. I mean, it's the same format every time. You're in the village. Somebody has a quest for you. Go out and do it. You find a bunch of loot. You bring it back. You repair all your equipment. You salvage all your shit if you're a dink crafter like me, because I don't like buying anything. I just want to craft it. And then you get a new quest, and you head back out there, and then eventually the map just keeps expanding because you get to go into different areas. But if you look at it, there really has not been any monumental change. And maybe it's one of those where it's not, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get that. But, you look at all the games in that genre besides the three I just mentioned. Look at Torchlight, and you look at, I mean, there's so many, dude. And, I really think that they need a wake-up call in that genre. I feel like Path of Exile did it from
that's the closest to a shakeup I've seen.
Yeah, from a difficulty standpoint, because now you can't just go out and rule the day. I mean, you're gonna get your ass handed to you a lot. But even then, once you get to eventually you get to an end state, and this is what I hate about min maxers, dude. They get there, they figure out a build that works for everything, they post it, and then everybody's character is exactly the same person. Yeah, every time you meet and you see them in the lobby, oh, they're running the
the meta takes over
crucifix holy build, or they're running the double axe Sprint Ranger build or whatever. And I'm just making those up, but you know, and you see it all over Reddit, you see it all over YouTube and TikTok. Hey, this is the new meta build for the Druid, and everybody's running the same build. And you know, it's one of those things where I end up avoiding those things like the plague, those builds, and just doing my own. And yeah, I have a harder time at it, but I can say it's my guy. You know what I mean? So they need to come up with a way to combat that where it's always fresh. And the rock, paper, scissors needs to be a thing where it's always rock, paper, scissors. That's what keeps you coming back. So anyway,
well, I think that would be
genre.
Well, that would be a great one. I would love to see that genre turned on its head because Diablo 4, while certainly not a bad game, you can definitely tell that they have gotten comfortable and that they are just like, all right, we'll just stay here and do this. And we're, the things that they were doing with the seasons and all that stuff, and where nothing carried over and this kind of stuff, where it's just really sort of taking, not only were you not driving anything forward in the genre, you were then, instead of, in lieu of creativity, you were just going to milk your players. Let's just do more egregious, nickel and diming of our player base. And that's how we'll make up for money. We won't aim for new and higher sales. We'll just aim for getting more money out of our established player base. So I would love to see somebody come in and even more. The Path of Exile did a pretty good job, and shaking things up. I'd love to see somebody come in and really shake things up. I think one thing that it sounds weird, but I really think it's probably more important than we may realize, is a bit of a facelift, a change of scenery, just the way it looks. So we've got Diablo, and then Path of Exile is still very similar to Diablo. It's still, not to mention Diablo is named Diablo. So the parents that don't want their kids playing video games because they think it's the devil, probably not the game that you want to try to market to them. So changing, giving that like a bit of a new layer of paint, changing something up the way that Arc Raiders did, making taking something like a hardcore military tactical kind of a thing and making it this sci-fi sort of thing. Figure some other way to present the isometric genre. Well, may not be sci-fi, and you could probably even do it with fantasy in a way that just strikes people as less satanic, that I think actually just would brighter them. Yeah,
have us do missions during the day when it's sunny.
There's a new game element introducing sunlight.
And even though it's not the same game, but you look at games like Baldur's Gate and Divinity 2, there was quite a bit of daytime great weather content in both of those games. So it's not like it can't be done, or even a different different setting completely. At this point too, you can almost say Assassin's Creed is its own genre. They definitely need to fix that formula a little bit too. It needs a shake up.
And we're gonna open some old wounds here. Ghost of Tsushima, they shook it up to the point that they shouldn't have released Assassin's Creed Shadows.
No,
unless they completely redid it, took it back down to the screws and started over. Ghost of Tsushima, it won. Like they took forever to get to feudal Japan, so Ghost of Tsushima was like, okay, we'll do it, and they did it so much better,
so well,
with so much style and art and just its own flair. Obviously Ghost of Yote, not so much, but Ghost of Tsushima really beat them to it. So I think they've definitely had blood drawn on that. I think they've already had somebody sort of take a chunk out of Ubisoft on that, and I'm excited to see other people try to do similar things and try to move that one forward as well. That'd be great.
Yeah, and back to Arc Raiders, though. Of course, I haven't played it either, but I mean, I've been doing a lot of watching videos on it because it looks really super interesting.
Hmm.
Some questions I have that I don't have the answers to. So, 9 days out of 10, I'm okay with just logging in and to a game like that and playing it as is. But my question is, like the division, when you go to the division and you buddy up with some friends and you go out, if you don't want to face anybody that's real, you don't have to. You can go do your missions, and I wonder if Arc Raiders has that, or is there that always that that component of people being there. And the reason I say that is because I've also seen like 30 million trolling videos
Yeah.
already on TikTok. That real quick, one, I know you're on sitting on a thought, but that and the fact that, man, some days I just have a hard day and I just want to come home and I want to play it, but I just don't want to get involved with any of the bullshit. And I just want to go out and maybe collect components. I used to do that on Monster Hunter. Log in, just go out on expeditions and collect stuff. And I feel like I'm not going to get to do that with Arc Raiders. I feel like as soon as I get my shit together, I'm going to get nailed.
Well, I can definitely say that that is something that a lot of people are wanting, clearly, just from what I have seen. Like I said, I haven't gotten a chance to play it either, but looking at headlines and stuff. So my understanding, and if I'm wrong on this, please let us know in the comments, correct me here. But my understanding is that currently there is not a way to basically go out with your friends without the component of other players that may or may not take shots at you. Because I saw one of the articles that had come out about it over the last week or so was basically that a lot of players are begging them to have a mode that removes the PvP aspect of it, where it's like, hey,
Dark Zone was like the best version of that.
Yeah,
in Division.
Well, where it's like, well, if you wanted to do PvP,
Yeah.
go Dark Zone. If you didn't want to do PvP, you had the whole rest of the city. And that's another thing is, like, obviously we're big fans of the Division here. Division 3, what will Division 3 do to, like, what lessons will it take away from this and sort of implement into its own thing? And maybe, I mean, we don't know when Division 3 is coming. We know that it is coming. They've acknowledged that they're working on it, but it's never been officially announced. It's always been like, we're continuing work on the series, whatever. I don't know. Their corporate way of saying it, but they're working on it. If they can manage to come out before Arc Raiders has a non-PvP, where it's just a PvE only experience that people can go into, or a mode, that would be a chance for the Division, who's now had this PvE, PvP, either or situation going for 2 releases now. Gives them an opening in the door to, like, sort of come back in and attract those players that have now sort of been, turned on by Arc Raiders, that had never sort of been into the genre before, that now are like, hey, I've found that I enjoy this style of gameplay, and maybe they can say, like, hey, come here, we've been doing it for a long time, check us out.
I mean, I think you're right. I hope they continue to. I don't want them to just rest on their laurels and just add new loot or new world time events. They need to think about constantly improving upon the mechanics and their ability to reach more people.
I also, let me see here, I should have, here we go. All right, so another thing that I want to talk about is a little game that came out called Dispatch. So I have now played all of the available. It's 8 episodes long, and I've played
like $30.
20, I believe, or maybe it is 30.
Oh.
Maybe it's 30. But yeah, it has 8 episodes, and it's
it like a Telltale game?
It is very much a Telltale game. It's so the studio, Ad Hoc Studios, is made up. There we go, from these people that have experience at these other studios, and so the heaviest DNA is from Telltale Games, and there's a lot of that stuff where you have you make a response, and it says, "Oh, this person will remember that," and it's like, well, will they? Is the response really that important, kind of thing? Or situations where you might make a decision, but the story was going to happen the way it was going to happen anyway. However, they do though have some choices that do change the course of the story, and they also have some choices that dramatically change the course of the story. And I like it a lot. So this is it looks fantastic. It looks like you're watching like a as you can see here in the trailer, it looks like you're watching like a um, high budget animated show like Invincible or something like that.
Invincible, yeah.
It's phenomenal as far as its presentation goes, and then the story is excellent. The story is amazing. The voice cast is incredible. I mean, Aaron Paul. You know, you got the people from Critical Role. It's an awesome voice cast. The animation's great. There's actually two ways to go about playing it. Whenever you start the experience, there's one is called cinematic, and one is like, I don't remember if they call it like interactive, but it's basically, so not the choices. You still have the choices that you make in conversation when somebody says something, and you have to make a choice on how you're going to handle something or what you're going to say. But little things like you can basically opt to not have quick time events or something like that, where there'll be like the main character has their phone and you have to swipe a direction in order for them to scroll. You know, it's like stuff like that. I'm like, I don't care about doing that. I don't want to have to like hit my D-pad or whatever to have them scroll on their phone. So I just chose the cinematic thing. So all of those little quick time events just go by. And instead of that. But then so what you're left with is you get the arcing decision making that you get with the Telltale games, and then the other basically play type, because obviously the point of the game is that you are dispatching superheroes. You are a former superhero yourself, and you work for this company, and you basically get calls from issues, and you have to send superheroes out to address these issues. And that is the main secondary gameplay that you get into, is this strategy. So you have a set number of superheroes each shift, and sometimes it's higher or lower for reasons, story related reasons. But you end up in a situation where it's like, oh, something happens, and you look at it and it's like, oh, a bridge is collapsing. We need somebody to get here fast so that they can hopefully stop the bridge from collapsing or whatever. And so, okay, I need speed and I need strength. And so maybe you have to send out two people that, two heroes that can sort of cover these bases, or one hero that has the necessary attributes, and things like that. But that's where the real strategy comes into play, because it seems at first like it's going to be very easy, and you're like, oh, this is going to be this is nothing. But it quickly becomes very complicated, especially with your limited resources, and it constantly throws curveballs at you with the resources that you have at hand. So much like the OG Resident Evil experience, where it's like, oh, if I go out that door, that's the door to the courtyard. There's 8 zombies out there, and I have 3 bullets. Like it's very much like that, where it's like, oh, we've got all of these issues that need to be addressed, and they're all time sensitive, and I have X number of superheroes allotted to me, or I have 3 things going on that require strength from a superhero, and my strength guy is already dealing with something else, and then this guy's thing is intellect, and you're like, what do? I just try to like pile on 3 relatively weak superheroes just so that we can sort of stack their power to go there?
It's almost like you're set up to where you could never do all of it.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult. Like you get cocky the first couple of shifts, you're like, oh, this is nothing, and then it cranks that difficulty up pretty quick. Quick. My advice to anyone that goes out and plays it, first of all, it's a phenomenal game. It's the writing is amazing, the voice acting is incredible, Everything is it's so much fun. It goes in a great direction. It really is like watching a great, well written show like Invincible. But as you do these shifts, you have the option that you basically you have experience points. Each of your superheroes has experience points, and you can you can upgrade your superheroes as you go through these things. You can level them up, and you will likely want to improve their weaknesses and say, oh, this guy is strong but he's slow, let's speed him up a little bit. Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. Just invest in their strengths, because it's 8 episodes. You will not be able to level them up enough throughout the process of this to even out and round them out. I would say invest heavily in their strengths. If they're let's say their thing is strength and endurance, put everything into strength and endurance. And if you need a thing where you need to sort of like round it out to complete a mission, team them up with another guy. Like you need speed, okay, team them up with a speedster during that thing, and send them off that way. Because if you're just going to waste time if you try to round out your superheroes. So just invest in their strengths. That would be my advice to you, is invest in strengths. So
all right,
those are my thoughts. Yeah, those are my thoughts on Dispatch. Love it. It's great. All right. So where the winds meet, or where winds meet.
Yeah.
Tell me more about it.
Okay, so first off, it's right out of the gate. It's free to play. There are a couple of additions that get you some different stuff. Like I said, I don't want to call them founders editions, but those are available. I think one of them's $14.99 and one of them's like $29.99 or something like that. So basically, this is an open world action adventure RPG. And it's set in ancient China in the 10th century. So it's in a historical setting, but there's very much a mysticism about the game, sort of like how Black Myth Wukong is, or any of those other types of games. But again, it's free to play. There's co-op for up to 4. Supposedly it's a 150-hour story, from what I understood.
Insane. That's like Persona levels.
Yeah. So it releases tomorrow. You can preload it now pretty much everywhere.
And is it available on like all consoles, PC, everything?
I know it's available on Steam, and I know it's available on PlayStation.
Okay.
So there's 20 unique regions, which are they're epic looking, dude. I mean, I saw some of the underground regions that going through these ancient Buddhist temples and whatnot. There's tomb raiding. You can go into some forgotten tombs, ancient cities. You could, then there's like those crazy, you and I both call them the Yakuza style activities that these games typically put in there. But if you want, you can just play flutes beneath the swaying willows, or enjoy drinks under lantern lit skies. So weird shit like that, of course. The combat is very much a wuxia type build with swords, spears, and dual blades. You've also got rope darts, bows, fans, and umbrellas as weapons. And then you can also employ like Tai Chi for like close in weaponless style combat. So just basic melee. And then as far as your character build, they have like professions. So you're building a profession, although I still have tons of questions about how that works with the co-op, because I don't know if you create like your own personalized character or not, or if you're playing a character in a story. Because it's very much narrative driven. So that worries me. So I don't know if that's the way. I do know that you can create guilds. Because there are raids and there are guild wars. I know there's a little bit of PvP in that, but most of it is PvE. So
well, and so is this? I assume this is going to be one that you're gonna give a shot.
Oh, absolutely, man. I love this era anyway, in as far as China and Japan, but yeah, and the system requirements for PC are not very high, which is crazy. Although the storage is sitting at 100 gigs, I don't know what it is on PlayStation, but I can pull that up while we're talking.
Well,
But
it's also one of those
man,
things where it's like the Chinese made games with where it's like all about Chinese culture. That's a new thing for video games, at least for the Western world. Like Black Myth
yeah,
Wukong was sort of like a breakout thing where it's like the first sort of like big budget Chinese made game revolving around Chinese culture. And it's like my son is a big fan of manga, which is the Japanese comic books. And then there's
yeah,
also Korean and Chinese versions. Like there's a manhwa and then like a manhua, uh, which is basically the Korean and Chinese versions of comic books. And they're very similar in a way to manga and the way that they approach storytelling, but they have very different vibes and flavors as well. And they have sort of different tropes and things like that. And he's really gotten into some of those other things, the manhwas and the manhuas, and that sort of thing. So it's very that that's what it reminds me of, because you sort of mentioned the Yakuza vibes, and so it's one of those things where it's like it's very much has like the sort of Eastern vibe and sort of like the familiar sort of thing that we've all become accustomed to with like this sort of like through Japanese games with this sort of like Eastern sensibility, but then they have their own little twists and turns and ways of storytelling, whereas a lot of Japanese games like Yakuza get zany in a lot of their, even though they're serious, they kind of have their zany
yeah,
things. Like so far, what we've seen with the Chinese made games that have like this sort of like the Chinese sort of vibe to them, they really fall back on mythology and tradition and stuff like that, and they splice those into their games. I don't know, it's interesting. So I'm very curious to see, not just this game, but the games that sort of continue to be introduced and what that kind of does and the fans that it builds and the sort of identity that Chinese games kind of carve out the way that Japanese games did.
yeah, absolutely. And while you were talking, I brought up the PlayStation Store entry for it as well, and it's got an entry for 14.99. But it says in here, and again, this is so cryptically worded. It said, "Where Winds Meet will be released on November 14th, Pacific time, and will be free to play. The game included in the current pre-order event can be played without any payment." So I don't know how to take that, because I've got multiple friends in my friends lists listed as people who play. Now that could just mean they paid for their pre-order to get that. There's a pack you get for the pre-order, and it's an in-game appearance set, a name card. You get 10,000 coins, whatever the currency is, and some type of whatever a draw token is. So you get that. But yeah, and again, the timer on it on PlayStation Store is setting at 20 hours and 1 minute right now. So
Getting close.
yeah.
All right. Well, do you have anything else to add before we move on from games? Any other
No, man,
games or anything
I'm
like that? No.
good. Not
All right.
really, dude.
So the big thing that I wanted to talk about, moving into movies and stuff, I unfortunately Jay was not able to watch Predator Badlands, but so I won't spoil anything. This will be spoiler free.
Just sticking the knife in. Just
Yeah,
a
it'll be
little bit.
spoiler free things. Don't want to spoil it for Jay or any of the viewers, but did want to talk about it. I was a huge fan of what I saw. So, excuse me. So before I get into some of the deeper things, I guess we'll start off with the simple thing as far as is it good? Do I recommend it? Yes. I loved it. I thought it was amazing. I thought it was fantastic. I absolutely loved this movie. So if you want to know my thoughts as far as that goes, like cut to the chase, movie's great. That's my hot take. But here is what I discovered as I kind of like went down the rabbit hole and realized, as a lot of creators that I love and respect and still love and respect, but I just had such a difference of opinion on this movie, and I just didn't get it. So like the Critical Drinker, who actually sent me a very nice reply earlier on in the life cycle of this channel, and I appreciated that. But big fan of the Critical Drinker, and he hated this movie. He hated this
Oh man,
movie.
everybody's got their own thing.
And Nerdrotic gave it a 5 out of 10. He didn't even bother to review it because he said, like, nobody cares about a review of a 5 out of 10 movie. If you don't love it or you don't hate it, there's no point in doing it. So he just didn't even review it. He's like, yep, nope, don't care. So I was like, man, what is going on? And, like I said, like, I'm not just like this super easy to please guy. You will be hard pressed to find someone more
Yeah, guys, he doesn't like anything.
more burned out of like Marvel and where we are there. Anybody that listens to the show knows that. So I don't know. So a few things before we kind of dive deeper into the divide. One, we had talked about one of our concerns being the fact that it was PG-13. Came out and it was PG-13, and you and I were both like, is that a bad sign? And I am happy to say that no, that is not cause for concern. Our concerns there are not warranted, because the only reason that it is PG-13, and this is one of the things that we speculated, is because there's no humans. Any humanoid looking figures you saw there are androids. So Wayland Yutani, androids. So there are no humans. There is no blood. So there's green blood and black blood and this and that. So there's dismemberment, but there's no humans. There's no red blood. So that brought the rating down. There's still a lot of horrific violence. So that is preserved.
Yay.
So yeah, no one needs fear. Yeah. Well, so I also want to say one of the things that I loved about this movie. So we know that I was excited because it was finally a chance to delve into the Yautja culture, the predators themselves. And this is something that had been touched on. I mean, we'd had it in novels and certainly a lot in comics, and it was touched on more in Predator Killer Killers on Hulu from Dan Trachtenberg. This is the first time we get to see it represented on screen, and I was super excited about that. And because I have always been fascinated by the Predator from the first time that I saw the original Predator movie, and I was like, I want to know more about that guy, that thing. I want to tell me more about this thing, and it's just not there. And so this, you get to see the Yautja culture, and then one thing that I love, Dan Trachtenberg. Again, he before he was this, in-demand director, he was on a podcast called The Totally Rad Show. He was one of 3 dudes on there. It was a video game podcast, and he's just a gamer nerd like us. And this movie, as much as it was all the things that we have wanted and that we love about Predator, it was also a love letter to video games. There are, and you will see, whenever you see this, you will immediately recognize so many things that are taken straight from video games. It plays out like an RPG. You are, it starts you off and you get to basically see what you're capable of. And then it tears you down to where you have nothing. And so that's your, you're shipwrecked at a beach. You're, just waking up and you can't remember anything. Or all these little things that happen in RPG, you are starting at nothing. So you've seen what you're capable of. You've now been reduced to nothing. And you are then going about an unfamiliar world on a mission. And you gain party members along the way. Absolute RPG setup. And then there's things like as he's learning about the world around him that he's now in, there's one thing, he starts walking and he sees like this field with this plant. And as he gets close to this plant, it begins to starts to shake, and it gets bigger and spikes come out. And then he backs away from it a little bit and it kind of goes back in, and it gets closer to it and it goes back out. And it's absolute classic video game thing. Like, get too close, this thing will blow up.
Yeah.
Keep your distance, it will not. So they have so many things like that. That's absolute love letter to video games. There's shots from the camera where it's like on at least 2 occasions, there may be more, but at least 2 occasions that is very clear that it's basically like the Breath of the Wild poster, where it's like you have the main character in the foreground and it's the sprawling shot that you can see all the way in the distance. You can see, okay, our character is here. This is where our character is going, and these are the obstacles that he will have to get through in order to get to that point. This is the monster he'll have to fight. This is the field he'll have to cut through. It straight up love letter to video games. And yeah, I think that was a really brilliant thing to bring into it. So it's kind of this melding of these things that gamers will immediately be able to identify with, recognize, and associate to. And it takes that along with the the Predator and all of this stuff. So I love that. I thought that was great. And I watched it. I watched it with my son. He loved it. I loved it. And then I started to hear a lot of these negative things from people that I respected. And I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it. And one of the things that I heard was that, and so I began to realize that one of these divides is people that don't play games. So Critical Drinker, not a big gamer. Nerdrotic doesn't game. So they're not familiar with a lot of these elements that were introduced. And I also don't think that, which, Nerdrotic, he's a comics guy, but I don't know if he just didn't read the Predator comics, but like in the comics, they dive pretty deep into Predator culture and stuff. But so a lot of the negativity that I saw was from people that have only watched the movies, particularly the first two. And I think that is one of the big dividing lines there. And there was actually a quote from Dan Trachtenberg that I took note of. Here it says, so Dan Trachtenberg said, and he basically said that if they just remade things over and over, like a lot of these people that have a negative opinion seem to be suggesting that he should have done. He said that he basically risks upsetting everyone. He said, if you're just retreading and remaking the same kind of thing over and over, then not only will hardcore fans not like it, but also just any fan of going to see a movie won't like that either. And I could not agree with that more. The whole thing. So Predator 1, Predator super cool. Predator 2, Predator super cool. But they die. That's the whole thing in these Predator movies.
Yeah.
The coolest character dies every time. The coolest character, the one that you are most intrigued about, you learn nothing about, and they die. And you do that over and over and over, and eventually that's going to stop being fun. That the cool character that you want to know more about dies, and you learn nothing about the greater culture.
Well, the closest thing we got no culture in the first one, other than the Spanish ladies. Like, he'd always come in the hottest months, this and that. The second movie, though, when you had Gary Busey's team, and somehow they ended up on the ship, that was the closest we got to any lore, because there was an alien head, there was a xenomorph head in there, and there was all these different alien heads. So you're like, okay, this is what they do,
Yeah. And even just that implication was like, oh, look at all those skulls. What stories could be told there? And in the in the novels, there's some of the novels are basically just anthologies. They're short stories, some of which are the perspective of the humans, some are from the perspective of the Yautja. And in that way, Dan Trachtenberg sort of went to the stories for Hunter Killer Killers by making this sort of seemingly anthology movie, and putting it together. So he kind of dug into the expanded universe. And so that was the thing that I discovered, is that a lot of the people that were really super negative on this movie, they didn't really interact with the expanded universe. They hadn't read the novels, they hadn't read the comics, they didn't really care, and they just wanted this formula of the cool guy comes from space and dies, and that's it. But like Dan Trachtenberg said, I think you run the risk of losing everybody in that, because you're continuing to get no information, and that's the greatest character. So another complaint I saw was that basically the creature that the Predator goes on this planet to hunt is, throughout the course of the movie, you're shown that this is not just some bloodthirsty, mindless killing machine. This thing is like any animal. It's an animal, and it has habits, and it has a purpose in its environment, and it serves that role. And so they didn't like that you learn about the target, and like, well, the target's not a monster. I'm like, well, you just complained that it wasn't this thing where the predator shows up and then dies. Well, those stories, his prey is a human. So, like, we the Arnold Schwarzenegger also wasn't a mindless killing machine. So it's like,
Yeah.
what do you want?
Well, that could
Like,
be argued, but yeah.
yeah, it's like, what do you want here? So it's like they seem to be sort of confused as to what they even wanted out of it. I heard a lot of people complaining about the android character, that she was annoying, and I understand that. And she was supposed to be. There's in fact an entire
Yeah.
scene dedicated to her just asking questions like a toddler, annoying the crap out of Deck, which is the name of the Yautja that we follow, where the scene is inserted clearly to show how annoyed he is with her incessant questions. Her purpose was to be annoying. And I don't know.
Like
And
the,
then
like the annoying, tutorial narrator voice, like, "Just shut up and let me go."
yeah. Well, and of course, the other thing like that we've been talking about for months that people didn't like was the design of the main character. They didn't like the look
Right?
of him. Well, hopefully this will quell any concerns there. It is pointed out many times in the movie that he is referred to as a runt. He is called malformed, not an ideal specimen. He is routinely spoken about in these degrading, derogatory terms where they're like, we don't like him either. And that's the whole thing. So, a couple of things there. One, if we're going to be following around a predator, a Yautja, and there are going to be other Yautja characters that we will be interacting with,
Yeah.
we need a way to tell them apart. We need to be able to say, because these are aliens, right? Like, there's going to be differences, but they're so different from ourselves that we're not going to be able to notice the small differences from one
The
head
subtle
sculpt
differences. Yeah.
to another, or the big carapace that they have. So they have to do these big changes so that we can easily identify our character, our Deck, the guy that we're following, and his design. So he is designed that way, one, so that he is easily distinguishable from the others that we will see. And also, it's worked into the story as one of the it's one of the driving forces in the story, is the fact that he is this runt. He is seen as weak in his
Well,
clan.
the little engine that could is a classic trope, dude. So,
Yeah.
and he's obviously that guy. He's the outcast, kind of outsider of his own race. So he's got something he's got to prove to him. You got something to prove. So, I don't know why people would have a hard time with that. We've been seeing this story for 1,000 years.
And this is a well-told version of that story. I think it is people were upset because they're like, well, I don't want to know. I don't want to know more about the predator. I liked that it was a mystery. I didn't want to know anything about it. Like, well, then, yeah, sucks to be you then, because yeah, this is going to tell you a lot about the culture, and we're going to learn about how they operate. But that's what I have wanted for years, since I was a little kid and saw the OG one. Like, I wanted to know more. That's why I read books. That's why I read comics. It was because I wanted to know more about them, and I was so happy to see them on screen. It's one of the reasons I loved Killer Killers so much. I thought Prey was great, but I really love Killer Killers because we got more of a peek at the culture, and this one is more of that. And so I was so excited for this one. I loved it. It was great action. I thought the story was well told. Sure, there's things that I could nitpick about it, that I would be like, oh, well, technically this or technically that, or, maybe. Sorry, I couldn't figure out what was going on downstairs. But, there's things I could nitpick about it, but I would still give this thing, I loved it. I had a fantastic, phenomenal time in the theater with it. I would give it a 9 out of 10. There's things that I could nitpick about it and things here and there, but no, none of it messed up my enjoyment of the movie. I thought it was a great story. I thought it was well told. I'm so excited for Dan Trachtenberg's sort of path that he's carving here. the last 3 entries that we've had for the Predator franchise have been Dan Trachtenberg. So he did Prey, he did Predator Killer Killers, and now he's done Predator Badlands. And I cannot wait to see where we go from here. He has really taken this in a new direction where we get to learn more about them as people, and so in Killer Killers we got to learn about the humans, and here we were getting to learn more about their side. And so obviously there's going to be some back and forth, and we're going to kind of
Right.
do different perspective shifting from project to project. But so there we go. That's basically where I'm at. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. A lot of people do not agree, but that divide seems to be from people that didn't really read the novels, didn't really read the comics, didn't really want any further explanation or deeper dives into the culture or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't understand why people were so upset by it, but I absolutely loved it.
Good deal, man. Yeah, I'm still looking forward to seeing it.
Well, I think
Unlike
I'm
Now
looking
You
forward to
See Me
your
sequel, which is tanking.
yeah, I'm looking forward to your review of it as well. And also, we'll see. I'm going to try this weekend to go and watch Now You See Me, Now You Don't. So that actually releases. We thought it was releasing next weekend. It releases this weekend. So
okay.
Going to try to see if I can catch it this weekend. If not, maybe next weekend. But looking forward to that too. But yeah, definitely cannot wait to hear your feedback on Predator, Badlands, and where we go from there. So that's really all I have as far as the entertainment side of things. There were a couple of other things that I saw that I was just like, oh, okay. Like I saw that they're working on a V for Vendetta series at HBO. Saw that.
And I noticed they recently had a reunion event because it was like the 20-year anniversary or something, and it just made me feel old. And so what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? I guess IGN's got their review in for Running Man.
Yeah, I've heard that Running Man, like most of the reviews that I've seen from Running Man are
It's
that
good.
it is good, not great.
Yeah.
That it's
Yeah.
like that basically Glenn Powell is fantastic in it, carries the film, and that the story itself kind of falls short in places, but that bridge is kind of, or that gap is kind of bridged by Glenn Powell and his performance. But you know, I love Glenn Powell. I really like Edgar Wright, the guy that's directing this movie. So I'm excited to see it, and it might be one of those things. Like I said, I've seen people that are like, oh, Predator Badlands is okay, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. So this is one that I'm still optimistic about, and think I'll really enjoy it from everything I've heard, and I think I'll probably enjoy it more than a lot of the critics are enjoying it. Even though they're saying it's good, I'll probably think it's even better than they're saying.
Okay, and then also I guess there was a little segment on Kumail Nanjiani and Macaulay Culkin are in the Fallout Season 2, which I didn't know
interesting. I did not know that either.
I don't know who they're playing, but
that's exciting. That'll be great. Macaulay Culkin obviously doesn't do a lot nowadays, so whenever he does show up, it's always a treat. So I'm excited to see what he does in the Fallout series, and also just excited for season 2 in general.
Yeah, I also don't know if you watched this show because it was on Apple TV, but Monarch: Legacy of Monsters season 2 got a release date of February 27th, 2026.
I have not watched it, but I have heard it's fantastic. I do need to watch it. I know the first season won all kinds of awards.
Yeah, and it's a time skipping type of show because there's a plot line from the past that is integral to what's going on in the present. And it's great because they got Kurt Russell and his son is playing the younger version of him. So that it's not a jarring transition. You know what I mean? You're like, holy shit.
They're the Wyatt Russell, guy. I believe is his name, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I just call him knockoff Captain America. We didn't get a release date on it, but I'm excited because we got they released plot details on Shogun season 2.
I saw that. I still need to. I actually have not watched the season finale of Shogun yet.
Yeah, dude, man, that
It's one of
was
those that I didn't want it to end, and I put it off, and I've just put it off so long. I need to go back and I need to finish it because I enjoyed Shogun so much. I thought it did such a great job of really immersing you in the world, and I thought everybody did such a good job in it. I was so captivated by it. The same way that Ghost of Tsushima sort of like latched onto me. It was just one of
yes.
those games that like it just got its hooks in me, and I just wanted all of it that I could get. Same thing happened to Shogun. So I got pulled into Shogun, and then I didn't want it to stop. So I put off watching the season finale.
Yeah, and then of course it was I mean, he was so emotional, he was crying at the end of it, but it was cool to see what's his name, Tom Felton reprise his role as Draco Malfoy in Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway.
I did see all those like cell phone videos that have been going
Yeah.
around. That was super cool.
So I thought that was pretty neat, and it's obviously he's one of the few actors in the franchise that still wants to be a part of it. So I think that's cool. Hopefully there's more to follow. Maybe he can play a young Lucius if they do that, or just play Draco if they ever do a sequel to the movies. But anyway,
I would not be surprised if he even just cameoed in the series that they're doing at HBO.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Whether even if it's not any of those roles, just to see his face pop up, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, and I I've got some major concerns with the show, obviously, as
me
as
too.
a big fan. But I mean, it'd be hard not to because most of this is one of the few movie series where people also read all the books.
Well,
And that seldom happens, so that's a cool thing. But it also makes us really, really hard critics.
well, and what was funny is I was excited whenever they first announced the Harry Potter show. I was like, oh, this will be cool because we can now, if we do like a season per book, we can dive into a lot of the nittier, grittier stuff that's in there and really dig into the minutia. And so I was excited, and excuse me, and Whitney was the one that was like, I don't like it. I'm not about it. This is not good. I don't like this. I don't like the idea of this. It was already perfect. And I was like, yeah, but this will be like a supplement to it or whatever, and I was still like, I was the advocate, and then
Yeah.
they released the image of the kids, and they look great. I mean, they look like, if you were just to read the description of the characters, like that little kid looks, he's a nerd with glasses. And the thing, and then the redheaded kid, he's there, and then the girl with the hair, like like everything looks great. But I like, as soon as I saw those kids, I'm like, not them. Nope, don't like it anymore. Like, I was already like, I checked out immediately. I was just like, no, that's not my Harry. That's not my Harry Potter. Even though these kids look exactly like they should.
Yes.
But I just saw the picture, and it wasn't.
And that's the same thing people did with The Witcher,
I don't like
dude.
it. So it took me that quick to turn on it. From good casting, I turned on it because of good casting, and I was still like, no, I'm out.
Yeah, the same thing happened to The Witcher. Once you adopt something, it is hard.
The Witcher also had other issues
to wrap your mind around. I'll wait till you watch it before you make that statement.
Well, it had issues before.
Hard to judge something you haven't actually.
No. It had issues before the fourth season. Is what I'm saying. It had. They had to replace their lead because of the issues they had before the fourth season.
And that's a fair statement. That is an absolute.
In fact, I just saw an article earlier today, just before we did the show, where Rosamund Pike was saying that she thinks that things would have gone differently with Wheel of Time if the show, if the first and second seasons were as good as the third season. If they had started out as good as they ended, she thinks that it would still be going. And that's the problem that we have, is so many shows, they buy the license, and they think that gives them, that they're now entitled to the fans of that license. Okay, we just bought the thing that you love, so now you're sealed. We don't even have to worry about catering to you. Now let's focus this towards a broader audience, and we'll tell whatever story we want using the names of the characters that you love, and then everybody hates it because it's not the source material. The story that you want to tell isn't better than the story that you bought. And then they lose audience, they lose credibility. And so many times you said that, the Ring of Power or Rings of Power improved in the second season. Well, they shouldn't have shit on the source material in season 1. Okay, Witcher 4, season 4 gets good. Well, they shouldn't have shit on the source material in season 2 and 3. This, or Wheel of Time. Well, they shouldn't have shit on the source material in seasons 1 and 2. They learned the lesson too late. If you would just start off being respectful to the license that you paid hundreds of millions of dollars to acquire, you would still be making that money back. Instead, they invest all this money, they learn the lessons too late, and things get canceled and you lose money. It happens every time. Like the Wheel of Time. Time is a flat circle. It just happens over and over.
With Rings of Power too, it's it was really hard because the first season was not good. And the second season was so very good. But when you try to convince your friends that don't want to come back after the first season that they need to watch season 2, and you can't get any traction with that, those friends still have not seen it.
Well, because
it makes it tough to push forward.
Well, because they seem to think we'll start off however we want.
Right. You're right.
And then we'll change from there. It's like you've already lost people. You can't, no matter how hard you pivot, you can take it and word for word, take it from the book or the manga or the show or whatever you're doing, whatever your source material is, and you could have dialogue word for word, and you're not going to win people back. You already lost people.
You'll never get a second chance to make a first impression.
Yes. And or like with The Witcher, where they started off strong, and then they were like, okay, now we got them. Now let's do our own thing. And then they lost people. And then they're like, well, we'll pivot hard and try to go back to the books. Well, that's too late. It's too late. These things where they always seem to think that they can, okay, well, if it doesn't work, we'll pivot. No, stop. Don't do that. It's like, I just saw a thing with, Avatar, where Avatar: The Last Airbender, where they're ending that now, but they've already wrapped season 3 before season 2 even releases, and then they're ending the live action remake that they're doing at Netflix. And the first one was not well received. I know some people liked it, but fans of the show didn't, because they changed stuff around. I don't know. It just blows my mind. It blows my mind that they continue to do this. But yeah, Rosamund Pike, I agree with her. Had they this hard pivot and telling people oh, well, we're gonna do the books now. Stop doing that. Stop. I don't even know why you bother. If you buy the rights to the source material, do the source material. It just blows my mind. I don't know why we keep doing this. Cowboy Bebop. I love the anime. Cowboy Bebop was phenomenal. It was one season of the anime, and I was excited at the possibility whenever they announced that they were going to be doing it for Netflix. I love John Cho. I think he's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
He was at one time cast in one of my favorite. They were going to do an adaptation of one of my favorite comic books, which is called Chew, and he was going to be the detective. I was so excited for that. Then that kind of fell apart, and they never actually ended up doing the adaptation. But whenever he got the role in their live action remake of Cowboy Bebop, I was super stoked. And then Cowboy Bebop, it came out and it was atrocious. And I was excited that if they do it right, well, then maybe I can get more seasons, since the anime is one season. If they do it right, maybe I can keep getting new stories of these characters that I love. And then they make you not love the characters immediately, and then of course it gets canceled.
So, funny story, I never watched the anime. I knew the name Cowboy Bebop. I didn't know what it was, what it was even about. I did watch the live action on Netflix because of John Cho, and I liked it, but I had no frame of reference for not liking it. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it wasn't great. It didn't blow my socks off or nothing, but I loved the setting. I loved the characters that they introduced, even if they did it wrong. I loved the people that played all the characters. And to me, it was an engrossing story, but it just like, again, it didn't blow my socks off or anything. So
Yeah, and it's like, same thing with, we have like with Star Wars now, where, you have a massive install base, and it's like cater to that. Instead, they're like, no, we're going to cater to the audience that we want. We don't like you guys anymore. We're gonna try to attract a new audience. It's not out there. There
Well,
is no modern audience. There is no
exactly
new
what you said about leveling up your heroes in Dispatch, man. Don't waste time trying to round out your fan base. Put your points in the ones that are already there.
Make good stories, and if there are,
Yeah.
if you make good stories, like The Mandalorian was season 1. Mandalorian season 1 was a perfect example. You're still telling a Star Wars tale, but you're putting a different spin on it. It feels like a Western, and it was cool. Now you're going to attract more people, even telling a true to the source Star Wars story. And they still attracted new people by telling a true Star Wars story true to the source, the actual Star Wars vibe. They didn't have to go and, Jon Favreau didn't have to go and hunt for new audience members. He didn't have to go and cater to an audience that he was seeking. He wanted to make a good Star Wars show, and he did that. And not only did System, hey, welcome System, good to see you. Season 1 Mando was amazing. It got non-Star Wars watchers to watch. Exactly. You make,
dude, his opening line was straight out of Good, Bad, and the Ugly. He's like, I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold. Dude, I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's do it.
So it's like you can tell different stories within the universe. Just because you're making a Star Wars property doesn't mean you have you're locked into some particular way of storytelling. Jon Favreau told a Western in Star Wars form, and it revived momentarily the Star Wars brand that had gotten rather cold. So this modern audience myth, it's a lie. You don't have to cater to attract people. You don't have to find these new people. Just tell good stories. So yeah, this whole thing about spending countless hundreds of millions of dollars for source material and then deviating from that source material in search of the mythical modern audience. I don't know how many shows have to die prematurely for people to realize this is not working.
I also think a lot of it's ego. You get a lot of these, at least from what I'm seeing from these directors and producers, they're like, just like you said, they're paying millions of dollars for the source material, and they're going to use it a little bit, and then they're going to go, you know what? I actually have a better version of how this story turns out, and I'm going to do my own thing. I need to put my mark on this. Well, guess what? You failed.
Yep.
Peter Jackson just cleaned the house at the Oscars for Return of the King. Did he deviate from his source material? Yes. Did his deviations make sense? They did. And plus, we're so far removed from the source material that a lot of people haven't read it. I was telling my son that it was mandatory reading when I was in school, but he just read it on his own. But I think Peter Jackson is, I'm not going to say the benchmark for how you take source material that's well beloved and still deviate a little bit enough to make a good movie. But he probably is. Oh,
yeah, I was going to say, I would say that he's the benchmark, because there are even things about where he mentioned that, there are things that he would not have written a certain way, or choices that he would not have made. But he's like, we're not making my movie. We're making Tolkien's movie. I wouldn't have made this choice, but it's not up to me. That was Tolkien's choice. We're making his movie. It's his vision. It's his world that we're driving to, that we're living in. We're not making a new world, and Rings of Power didn't feel the same way. So it's the exact same property handled two very different ways with two remarkably different outcomes.
Yeah, and the sad thing is the TV show could have been something to behold because it was a TV show. We could have had a lasting amount of crazy seasons of it. I mean, they were playing with 3,000 years of Middle Earth history prior to the movies. So
Yeah, and then we got, Timu Gandalf that they can't actually call Gandalf because they don't have rights to Gandalf.
yeah, what the
There's
hell
so
was that
many,
about?
yeah, there's so many ridiculous things. So yeah, I don't even know how we got off on this tangent, but it frustrates me to no end every single time. I used to get excited whenever I would hear that they were making a live action version of something that I loved, and now I dread it. Now if
Isn't
I
it
hear that,
crazy how much concern we yeah, dude, if somebody said Star Wars, I was like, yes, let's see what it is. And then I'd wait to go to the movies to get, disappointed.
yep.
Now, as soon as something gets announced that from a franchise, I'm like, oh, wonder how they're gonna wonder how they're gonna twist this and mess this up.
Yep, I just saw a headline the other day where like they're working on a new live action adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was like, ugh, maybe just not,
I'm
uh,
lucky that was past my time. I'd already crossed over.
yeah, man. There's so many. Oh, what we got here? System says crazy how much a shift that is. Anything gets announced and we can't help but be on defense. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 100% that way. Anytime that I hear something, they're like, "Oh, they're doing this." Like I heard that they were going to be doing a Ghost of Tsushima show or movie. I can't remember which is a show or a movie. I think it's a movie. And I'm like, we'll see. We'll see. All these things that we love now, like yeah, it used to be like, oh, I'm so excited, that's awesome, but we've been burned so many times that
Well,
now it's a red flag. We're like, I don't know, man, this is maybe
look at the
not.
the Mass Effect announcement I sent you the other day, and they're like, we're starting our show after Mass Effect 3, and I'm sitting there thinking, then what's the threat?
Yeah, like
Where's the threat?
yeah, we've got
I
to
mean, how
have.
much more of a threat, dude? They could have opened in the middle of 3 and had a better show than what
Yeah,
they're already talking about.
dude, if the very first, like, I would be like, I think it would have been great if for the Mass Effect series, the very first thing that you hear, it's everything's black, and then whatever you're before your scene even comes up, whether it's pointed at a city, pointed to the stars, pointed at a Mass Effect relay, you just hear the blah, like that
Yeah,
roar, you
the
know.
boom, 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 boom,
No, no,
boom,
no,
boom.
no, from the Reapers, the
Oh yeah,
Reaper ship,
yeah,
like that
yes,
roar that the Reaper ship makes, and just go from there. That'd be great. But yeah, they're doing it afterwards, so it's like, okay, well then what are we doing? What's the point? Also, where are we at now? Because, granted, this can change. We'll see what happens with Mass Effect 5, but doesn't matter what choice you made, doesn't matter what your favorite color was at the end of Mass Effect, there's no more Mass Effect relays.
yeah,
Spoiler alert. Yeah, whatever your favorite color is, Mass Effect relays go down. There is no more Mass Effect at the end of Mass Effect.
yeah. No, what'll be bad is if the show opens up and it's some soldier walking through being led by somebody on his way, and he's like, "Welcome to the Andromeda Project."
Oh
I'll
gosh.
just turn it off. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
kidding. I'll turn it off.
Yeah, that needs to die.
Yeah,
That's another one where, like, yeah, that, oh gosh. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, whenever that first got announced, or whenever it was first being batted around years ago, I remember it was teased by Henry Cavill on
yeah,
Instagram, and he was did the thing where he was like over his shoulder and he had a script in his hand, and people were able to, like, sharpen the filter or whatever, and they could see that he was reading a script for the Mass Effect show, and everybody got stoked. But that was years ago, and he's
yeah,
clearly no longer involved in it. I think, and that's one thing. We do have fighters. We've got Jon Favreau for Star Wars, where it's like, okay, if Jon Favreau's doing something, at least we have a chance that it's
yeah,
still going to be there, that it's still going to hold true. And Henry Cavill, because of how valiantly he fought for the Witcher show, even though he unfortunately went down, he's like, now that he's in Warhammer, I'm not worried about the Warhammer show,
right.
because I'm like, well, he gets it. He's a fan. He cares. He wants to know about it. Same thing that happened, like Bo DeMayo, the guy that did season 1 and 2, I believe, at least storied out season 2 of X-Men 97. Like, he got it. He was a fan of X-Men,
Yeah,
and they fired him, unfortunately. Um, which sucks. But he cared about X-Men and the original cartoon. So X-Men 97, season 1 was phenomenal. Bo DeMayo got it, and Bo DeMayo was a writer for The Witcher, and he was one of the ones that talked about the writers' room and how there were people that were like actively talking, like trash talking the source material. People like actively disliked the source material, and they were like writing against it. I don't know. It's just, I don't know how we got on this tangent, but I don't know. It's a good one, but yeah, it just drives me crazy. I hate this. I hate the whole approach that has been taken for so long, and I hope that maybe we have finally reached critical mass where enough movies and shows have died that the tide is finally starting to turn, especially now that people are going to the movies less. It's harder to get people to watch your show, especially now that, we've got so many different streaming services. You could have 12 different streaming services, and if you've got a good show on one of them, unless it's damn good, people aren't going to care. So it's harder to get these audiences to come to where you are. So they're not going to come there for a mediocre product anymore. You can't just put, like the old days on network TV where it's just like 23 episodes of crap, just a procedural thing. And, just every show is basically the same thing, just over and over again. You've got to really put some work into it. So I don't know, maybe we're finally getting to a place where it can start to change, and hopefully eventually we don't have to shudder in fear every time that we hear that one of our favorite games or comics or novels is being adapted for the screen.
Yeah.
Look at is it Denis Villeneuve? Is that how you're supposed to pronounce it? I would always say Denis Villanueva, but I think it's Denis Villeneuve, whatever. The guy that did Dune.
It's Villeneuve, but go for it.
The guy that did Dune 1 and 2, phenomenal job. That's how you do it, right there. You talked about, and we've talked about, I don't remember if we talked about this on the show or offline. I think it was offline that we had talked about how he made choices as well that strayed a little from the comics and made different choices and left some things out but I understand why those decisions were all made.
Yeah.
And he kept the core of what it was. And so just like Peter Jackson before him, I think, we can still do it just because it's, modern day. People say like, oh, well, the Lord of the Rings, that was so many years ago now. Well, this guy did it, just within the last few years, did it twice, and he's doing it a third time, and I trust him. And he even made some big changes, like with the Prince, Austin Butler's character in season 2. Like he does not look like that in whenever they talk about the books and they did. But anyways, point is, he made changes, they worked, and they still were respectful to the source material. So he did a great job. I don't know.
They did.
Sorry, that was an aimless rant. We were just angry. But I don't know. Do you have anything else that like I said, I don't even know how it got us on that one, but anything else?
I don't, man. I'm good to go for tonight, I think. But yeah, I'm ready to push on for next week. But
all right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, System, for showing up again. Good to see you. And
appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to your thoughts on Predator Badlands, Jay. So once you watch, definitely let me know, and then we can talk about it in a more spoilerific way for the show. But I love it. I loved it. I could not recommend it more highly.
I'm sure I'll give you my 20-word summation right after I see it via text, and then obviously we can talk about it. But I'm assuming next week then will be the spoilerific version of the review.
Yeah. We can tear it apart and go into it, because there's definitely plenty to talk about and plenty of things to go into. I love it, and I will say, just in closing, I had watched all of the previous Predator movies. I've read quite a few novels, read a bunch of comic books. There was one movie that I had not seen from the Predator series, and that was The Predator from 2018, which was the one with Olivia Munn, where the Predator comes to Earth because autism. And
yes, I like that movie. I don't give a shit what anybody says.
I
Here we go.
we deviate.
Yeah.
Man. I was watching.
What
I
a
was like,
cast,
it was a great
man.
cast. It was a great
Yeah.
cast.
And they worked well together. I felt like they gelled. I really love Sterling K. Brown's. I freaking loved his character, dude.
The thing that the bridge that I could not cross, the line in the sand. Sorry, I got a curious cat back there on the empty shelves. The line in the sand for me was the predator dogs. Like these dogs.
I love the
What? There's no explanation as to what.
Yes.
It's like a pit bull dog body with a.
I call them Predweilers.
It's like a predator face. Like it still has
Yachtweilers.
It's still it's like taking the head off of a predator and putting it on a dog. Like it,
dude. Can you think of anything better than that? I mean, come on.
Yeah, a different species, like something that doesn't look like the predator on all fours. Like the dog had dreadlocks and everything. I'm like, what is going on here? That was the bridge that I was like, anything else, I can't do this. But Sterling K. Brown, he was like the highlight of that movie.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. I don't want to keep going. But anyways, all right. Thank you for joining us. We will see you next week at 7:00 for episode 45. Glad to be back into the swing of things after 6 weeks of moving and getting everything going. And again, we'll continue to get stuff on the shelves and on the walls of the new place and all that stuff. But thank you for joining us. We will see you next week for episode 45. So
thank you guys.
Thank you and good night.